Conditions May Apply by CinnamonPinecones. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 95. The Good News Blues. Izuku woke up and checked his phone, only to realize he'd missed a text from All Might last night. All Might, did you get your letter? Kami. He didn't want to answer that. He didn't want to pretend to be excited. He wished so desperately that he could just be excited. He got into UA's hero course quirkless. That was supposed to be a dream come true. Shouldn't good things happening make him feel good? Why did he always have to latch on to any sort of perceived misfortune? His wildest damn dreams came true. He was texting All Might. He had All Might's quirk. He got into UA's hero course. He apparently got the highest score on the entrance exam that the school had seen in decades, but he was still had that godforsaken hole in his chest. He wanted to scream and cry at the injustice of it all, but he didn't have the energy. Midoriya, yes! He sent off a reply because he owed it to him. All Might had given him far too much to deserve Izuku's sour mood. All Might, I'm so proud of you. We should celebrate. I grabbed your uniforms for you since I was already on campus. Why don't I pick you up and we can get some ice cream? Big smile. It was so painfully domestic that it almost made him cry. That was something a father was supposed to do, and the realization hit him like a ton of bricks. Izuku didn't deserve his kindness. He hardly had the decency to be grateful. This was supposed to make him happy. Why? 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 Why couldn't he just be happy? It was so frustrating to know how he was supposed to feel and have it just out of reach. It felt even worse to know that nothing could fix him. No amount of good news, no amount of genuine care from others was going to make this better. He was supposed to feel like this, wasn't he? It was what he always came back to. It was inevitable. It was just how he was. He knew he was spiraling. He knew he should stop. But he didn't even have the energy to try. He texted All Might back, made some plans for later in the evening, and hoped he would be able to pull himself out of the hole he'd dug by then. Toshinori was out of his depth. He'd made a bumbling mess of things, but he'd never felt such pride in his life. Midoriya had done amazingly, and it stung his ego to know that his performance had almost nothing to do with his own teachings, or lack thereof, he should say. Midoriya was going to be something great, and Toshinori owed him an apology for having discounted him at their first meeting. He had already apologized the day of, but he had no clue just how wrong he'd been. Should he apologize again? He felt like he should, but whether that was to soothe his own guilt or to actually make amends, he didn't know. The boy had a knack for making him feel clueless. He was 50 years old and stumbling around like a newborn giraffe. He knew he didn't want to be like Torino. The man was too cold and distant. He wanted to be like Nana, but his memories of her were faded. All that he remembered with clarity was how she made him feel, and she made him feel loved. She made him feel seen and supported and cared for, like he wasn't alone for once in his life. But he didn't know how to be that for someone else. It had been too long since someone had been that for him. He hardly even knew how to be there for a friend, much less be there for a child. Maybe he should ask Dave. He had left their relationship like a book opened halfway, pages once flipped through with care only to be abandoned on a coffee table. He didn't even put a bookmark between pages. He didn't leave with the intent to be gone long. but he had, and now it seemed too late to pick it back up again. He had a habit of doing that. He did it with Dave, and Torino, and Mirai, and now Masa, and the list went on. Kami, he had a problem. He had to do better for Midoriya, but he had no clue how. He figured being there for him was as good a place to start as any, so he invited him out to celebrate. As much as he appreciated having work to fill his time with getting ready for the start of the new semester at UA, he did miss his protege in the last 2 weeks. Izuku did his best to pull together enough scraps of his sanity to construct a passably convincing facade for All Might. He bounced on the balls of his feet and plastered a smile over his face that he could only hope spread to his eyes as All Might's truck pulled into the lot. "Good evening, my boy," he greeted with such genuine warmth that Izuku wanted to scream. "You've been busy at UA, haven't you?" he answered back, hoping to fend off any conversation that would prompt introspection on his part. "I have. Sorry about that. However, we'll be seeing each other a lot more in a few short weeks. Congratulations, my boy. You did spectacularly." He knew there was no getting out of talking about himself, but he wished there was. "Thanks. I couldn't have done it without you," he replied, knowing that was only half true. "I didn't teach you any of that agility, young man. You got in on your own merit," All Might reminded him. Why did he have to remind him? "I couldn't have gotten #1 without the #1 hero's help," he insisted, doing his best to emulate a version of himself that wasn't so self-pitying. "Semantics. You wouldn't have left that girl there, quirk or not," he said as he pulled out of the parking lot. He was right about that. He probably would have gotten a few rescue points there anyway. That wasn't helpful to know. He let All Might chatter on about UA and his garden, giving a comment here and there, but he really wasn't paying attention. He didn't want to be a quirkless hero, he reminded himself. He didn't want to be quirkless. Nothing was going to change for him if he was still quirkless. It would be the same old discrimination, just on a larger scale. It had to be enough for him to just know that he could have. He could have done it. But now he was going to be something better. Someone better. He wasn't letting anyone down. No one expected him to be a quirkless hero. Quirkless people didn't expect a quirkless hero. Eraser had told him to do whatever had the greatest chance of making him happy, and being bullied and told to kill himself on a national scale for the rest of his life was not going to make him happy. He could be happy like this. With One for All, he could be happy. "Right, my boy? You seem off," All Might commented, snapping him from his thoughts as they parked. "Yeah, sorry. Just a bit overwhelmed by everything," he answered honestly. "That's understandable, and nothing a little ice cream can't fix, if you ask me," All Might replied with a kind smile. He could be happy like this. He wasn't, but he could be. End of chapter.